The question, if God created the universe, who created God, has captivated human imagination for centuries. It's not just a thought experiment, but a challenge to our understanding of existence itself. The complexity of the question stems from its fundamental contradiction to everything we observe. Everything in the universe has a beginning. From the smallest particle to the largest galaxy, creation is central to our reality. Yet, this question ventures beyond our understanding, touching on the metaphysical and the divine. It's the kind of mystery that pushes philosophers and theologians alike into the realm of the unknown, where reason and faith intertwine. Christianity addresses this question with a bold claim. God was not created. He is eternal, existing outside the constraints of time and space. This foundational belief challenges our linear understanding of beginnings and endings. Passages like Revelation 1:8, where God declares, "I am the Alpha and the Omega," reveal a timeless existence that defies causality. But what does it mean for a being to have no beginning? Our minds, wired to understand cause and effect, struggle to grasp the concept of something or someone that simply is. This is the theological mystery at the heart of Christianity. Enjoying the story? Like, subscribe, and share to support us. Let's continue. To further understand this idea, it's essential to explore how Christianity defines eternity. God's eternity isn't just about existing forever, but about existing outside time entirely. Imagine a being who doesn't experience time as we do, no sequence of moments, no past or future, just an eternal present. This idea is supported by biblical passages like Psalm 92, which proclaims, "From everlasting to everlasting, you are God." For Christians, this eternal nature of God isn't just an abstract idea, but a cornerstone of their faith, one that places God beyond all creation. Philosophers like Thomas Aquinas sought to explain this in logical terms. In his first cause argument, Aquinas stated that everything in the universe has a cause. Yet, an infinite regression of causes is illogical. There must be a starting point, an uncaused cause. This first cause, he argued, is God. Aquinas' reasoning is rooted in the idea that causality applies to the created world, but not to God, who exists outside its boundaries. His work bridges the gap between faith and reason, providing a framework for understanding God as the source of all existence. However, not everyone is convinced by this explanation. Critics like Richard Dawkins argue that invoking God as the first cause simply postpones the question. If everything needs a cause, why doesn't God? This challenge highlights a tension between faith and reason. For Dawkins and others, the idea of an uncreated being is no less puzzling than the concept of a universe without a cause. This philosophical impasse demonstrates the complexity of the debate, where neither side can fully resolve the mysteries of existence. Science enters the discussion with its own explanations for the universe's origins. The Big Bang Theory, for instance, suggests that the universe began as a singularity, a dense point that expanded into everything we see today. Scientists like Stephen Hawking argued that the universe could arise spontaneously due to quantum mechanics, without the need for a divine creator. Yet, these scientific theories themselves provoke deeper questions. If the universe arose from laws of physics, who or what established those laws? Returning to Christianity, the Bible asserts that God not only created the universe, but also time itself. Augustine of Hippo, an influential early Christian thinker, argued that before God created the universe, time did not exist. God, therefore, exists outside the linear progression of time, free from its constraints. Augustine's insights align remarkably with modern physics, which views time as a dimension tied to the fabric of space. This convergence between ancient theology and contemporary science adds depth to the discussion. The Bible uses powerful language to convey God's eternal nature. In Exodus 3:14, God tells Moses, "I am who I am." This statement encapsulates the idea of self-existence, a being whose existence depends on nothing else. It's a concept that defies human understanding, pointing to a reality beyond the physical world. For Christians, this self-existence isn't just an abstract truth, but a reassurance of God's ultimate sovereignty. Philosophical arguments like the ontological argument also seek to demonstrate God's existence. Anselm of Canterbury proposed that God is that than which nothing greater can be conceived. He argued that the very concept of God necessitates his existence. A God who exists only in thought would be less perfect than one who exists in reality. This bold reasoning continues to spark debate among philosophers, blending abstract logic with theological conviction. The ontological argument faced criticism from figures like Ganillo, who challenged its logic. He argued that imagining the greatest possible island doesn't mean it exists. Anselm countered that God, unlike an island, is a necessary being. His existence isn't contingent on anything else. This debate illustrates the complexities of defining existence itself, especially when discussing a being as transcendent as God. Modern philosophers like Alvin Plantinga revisited the ontological argument with new tools, such as modal logic. Plantinga proposed that if it is even possible for God to exist in one possible world, then God must exist in every possible world, including our own. This modern adaptation strengthened the argument's appeal, emphasizing that God's existence is logically necessary, not just hypothetical. Even skeptics found this line of reasoning difficult to dismiss outright. The ontological argument, though abstract, challenges us to grapple with the nature of existence itself. The idea of God's timelessness plays a pivotal role in how Christians understand divine foreknowledge. Unlike humans, who experience time sequentially, God sees all moments past, present, and future as one. This belief is key to understanding biblical prophecies and God's omniscience. Passages like Isaiah 46:10, where God declares, "I make known the end from the beginning," emphasize this eternal perspective. It's as though God exists on a higher plane, watching the entirety of history unfold in a single, eternal moment. Early church thinkers like Athanasius emphasized that God's eternal nature is intrinsic to his divinity. Athanasius argued that if God had a beginning, he would be no different from the rest of creation, finite, contingent, and bound by time. This distinction between the creator and the created is central to Christian theology. Without God's eternal nature, the foundations of faith, including the belief in salvation and divine sovereignty, would collapse. Athanasius's work laid the groundwork for understanding God as fundamentally other, yet deeply connected to his creation. The concept of God creating time itself adds another dimension to the discussion. Before the universe existed, there was no before in the way we understand it. Time, as Augustine argued, is part of creation, not a condition that God operates within. Modern science, particularly through Einstein's theory of relativity, supports the notion that time is not absolute, but interwoven with space. This parallel between ancient theology and contemporary science provides a fascinating bridge between faith and reason. The Bible consistently portrays God's eternity as foundational to his character. Verses like Psalm 127 declare, "You remain the same, and your years will never end." This unchanging nature reassures believers that God's promises are eternal and unshaken by the passage of time. In a world where everything changes and decays, the idea of a constant, eternal God offers a source of stability and hope. This divine constancy is not just a theological claim, but a central element of Christian worship and devotion. The cosmological argument brings another perspective to God's existence. It asserts that everything that begins to exist has a cause, and since the universe began to exist, it must have a cause beyond itself. This argument aligns with the Big Bang theory, which suggests that the universe had a definite beginning. Proponents of the argument claim that the cause must be timeless, spaceless, and immaterial qualities that align perfectly with the Christian understanding of God. Critics of the argument often propose alternative explanations for the universe's origin. Some argue that the universe could have arisen from quantum fluctuations or pre-existing physical laws. However, these explanations often fail to address the deeper question: where did those laws come from? Theists argue that such laws themselves point to an ultimate, uncaused cause. Even in a scientific framework, The existence of physical laws and constants suggests an order that transcends the universe. The debate over God's eternal nature is not merely academic, it has profound implications for morality and purpose. Without an eternal source of truth, moral standards can seem arbitrary or relative. Christians believe that God's eternal nature provides an absolute foundation for right and wrong, offering humanity a moral compass that is unchanging and universal. This belief ties morality to God's character, emphasizing justice, love, and holiness as eternal principles. God's self-existence, or Aseity, is another key aspect of Christian theology. This concept asserts that God's existence is independent of anything else. Unlike humans, who rely on external factors for life and sustenance, God exists entirely in and of himself. The statement, "I am who I am," from Exodus 3:14 encapsulates this idea, presenting God as the ultimate source of being. Aseity underscores God's uniqueness and separates him from all other entities in existence. The implications of God's eternity stretch into Christian eschatology, the study of the end times. Believers hold that God's eternal nature ensures the fulfillment of his promises, including the promise of eternal life. This belief is rooted in passages like John 3:16, which declares that those who believe in God will not perish but have eternal life. For Christians, God's eternity is not just a philosophical concept, but a personal hope for a future without end. The question of eternity also touches on free will and human agency. If God exists outside time, does that mean he determines every event in advance? Christian theology navigates this tension by emphasizing God's omniscience without compromising human freedom. God's timeless perspective allows him to see all choices without forcing them, ensuring both divine sovereignty and human responsibility. Science and theology often intersect in discussions about God's eternal nature. The fine-tuning of the universe, for instance, suggests precision that defies randomness. From the exact strength of gravity to the properties of atoms, the universe seems designed for life. Theists argue that this fine-tuning points to an eternal, intelligent creator. Even skeptics acknowledge the improbability of such conditions arising by chance, keeping the debate alive. Ancient philosophers, like Aristotle, contributed to the understanding of a first cause, which Christianity later adapted. Aristotle's unmoved mover concept describes a being that initiates all motion without being moved itself. For Christians, this being is God, who not only starts creation, but sustains it continually. This idea emphasizes God's role not just as the creator, but as the ongoing source of life and existence. The relationship between God's eternal nature and human existence is deeply personal for believers. Christians see themselves as created in the image of an eternal God, giving their lives purpose and meaning. This belief fosters a sense of connection to the divine, where human actions are part of a larger, eternal narrative. It's a perspective that offers comfort in the face of life's uncertainties. The enduring debate about God's eternity challenges us to expand our understanding of existence. Whether through science, philosophy, or theology, the question of why there is something rather than nothing continues to intrigue humanity. Each perspective offers valuable insights, yet the mystery remains profound, pointing to the limits of human knowledge and the possibility of a transcendent reality. The Bible frequently highlights God's unchanging nature as an anchor for humanity's faith. In Hebrews 13:8, we read, "Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever." This constancy is foundational to Christian belief, offering assurance that God's promises are steadfast. In a world marked by change and uncertainty, God's eternal and unchanging nature provides hope and stability. This belief transforms the way Christians perceive challenges, grounding their faith in an unshakable divine presence. The question, who created God, also forces us to consider the boundaries of human understanding. Our minds are conditioned to think in terms of cause and effect, beginning and end. Yet the concept of an eternal God transcends these categories. This tension invites humility. reminding us that some truths may lie beyond human comprehension. Many theologians embrace this mystery, seeing it as an invitation to wonder and worship, rather than as a problem to solve. The interplay between science and faith continues to evolve, with both perspectives exploring the origins of existence. While science seeks to explain how the universe operates, faith addresses why it exists. For Christians, these approaches are not contradictory, but complementary. God, as the eternal creator, is seen as the source of the laws of physics and the complexity of life. This harmony between science and theology enriches the conversation, offering a holistic view of reality. God's eternal nature is also central to Christian worship. Songs, prayers, and rituals often celebrate his timelessness and self-existence. Worship becomes an act of aligning oneself with the eternal, acknowledging a reality that transcends human limitations. This perspective shifts focus from temporary struggles to eternal truths, offering peace and purpose to believers. Through worship, Christians connect with a God who is both infinite and intimately present. Ultimately, the question of God's origin touches on the deepest questions of existence. Why are we here? What is the purpose of life? For Christians, the answer lies in God's eternal nature. God is not just the creator, but the sustainer and ultimate destiny of all creation. By grounding their faith in an uncreated, eternal God, believers find meaning in the grand narrative of existence. Whether viewed through the lens of theology, philosophy, or personal faith, the concept of God's eternity invites exploration, reflection, and awe.